Hello Saxo fans, zinc plating special, here we are. So yeah, what is zinc plating? Well, if you've ever looked at some bolts or screws that you've bought from Wicks or whatever, and you see a nice little sort of gold plated type screw that looks a bit like that, that's effectively zinc plated. It's a great finish, corrosion resistant, and it looks quite nice. So things like these bolts that I have already bead blasted, you can see are already going rusty. And the reason for that is I've taken off any protective finish that they might have had from the factory. When I took all the rust off and all the crap that was on them, also gets rid of that. So effectively they're just prone to rust. I thought about painting them and even went down the road of starting with putting a bit of primer on them and painting them, but the issue with that is when you put a socket on it and put some torque through it, you're obviously just going to crack the paint and pull it off. So not really going to work. I think it might look nicer it being in the right colour, but essentially it'd probably be a problem when you come to do it up. So, and also then you can do other things, little brackets and whatever you need to do. So I'm going to have a go at doing it. So the main reason that I wanted to do it for myself, number one, to learn about it, why not? It's something interesting and fun to do, hopefully. But a few other reasons. When you give a load of stuff to another company to do it, obviously you pay them for that privilege. But also you tend to sort of want to give them, a big sort of bucket of bolts. And I don't have a massive bucket of bolts. I've only got sort of maybe 30 or 40 bolts, perhaps, at the moment, tops. And I'd have to lob them all in a bucket, give them all over to them, hope they don't lose any, give them all back to me, and then I have to sort them all out, remember where all my washers went. And it just seems like a faff, and I'd have to keep going back every time I've got a reasonable amount. It's just sort of quite an inflexible approach. So I thought if I do it myself, I can do it whenever I need to, and I can do the quantities that I need to. I just need to get the process right. So I've bought a kit. You can probably just see it here over my left shoulder on the bench. The kit was about £120, and that gives you some of the chemicals and things that you all need, and it gives you things like your current controllers and some of the safety kit as well. I'll run through everything it gives you. In addition, we'll also need extra buckets, fish tank heaters and fish tank air pumps, but I'll explain all of that why when we get into it. I'm very fortunate in that my dad had a career in plating, plastics and metals, so I've got an expert on hand, which is half the reason why I thought this might be worth having a go. Probably might not have done it if it was just me on my own, but yeah, it doesn't look too difficult, to be honest. So I'm going to have a little read through the instructions, and then I'll introduce you to my dad and we'll have a go. Right, here we go. Zinc plating. This is my dad. He's got some background in plating. So give us a quick history of what that is.
Okay, 1967 I started doing electroplating, and one of my first ever jobs was zinc plating, done on a bigger scale than this though. And I used to go into work in the mornings, and one of the first things I had to do was to get a hammer and break all the ice off the tanks and the rinses because it was so bloody cold. So this is revisiting my past, if you like. So anyway, well, it's quite an interesting process, so I hope you'll find it very useful.
Good. Okay, so let's go and have a look and see what we've got.
Right. So this is the kit for zinc plating. So step one is to bead blast the bolts. These are the two we're going to do to begin with. So they've been through the bead blaster. Let's get a big picture of those. So you can see how we've wired them up. We're obviously going to pass current through these later on, hence why we've got a nice bit of copper tube which we've crushed and wrapped in some copper wire. So we've set them to a depth to allow them to go into the degreaser, which is a alkaline solution. Did you say?
It's an alkaline solution. Yeah, it's usually based on sodium hydroxide. Plus, it has, for want of a better description, some detergents in it or surfactants in it.
Okay, lovely.
And they are there to dissolve grease and so on, which actually, because you've bead blasted, there won't be much on there, so they won't need too long in there. But
brilliant. So we've got a heater in here as well, so this is just a fish tank heater, 50 watt, and we've got a little temperature gauge on the side so we can see roughly how hot that is. The hotter the better for the degreaser. It's obviously quite cold outside at the moment, but our degreaser is at about 28 degrees. So we'll leave that in there for a couple of minutes.
It depends how badly the contamination of the surface is, but in theory, a couple of minutes, because you've bee blasted them, will be fine.
Okay, good. All right, then we'll move on to the next step.
The process is to make sure that you don't cross-contaminate one solution into another. So what we're going to do here is we're taking the parts out, and then we are just going to use spray water. We could put them in here as well, okay, but we've only got one rinse tank for the moment, one bucket. So, and we're only doing a couple of bolts, so the amount of cross-contamination is minimal. So a quick spray, and then we're going to put them into the dry acid salts. Some people call them pickles, and they are what they say. It's an acid. So the idea behind the acid material is to try and make sure that you remove any oxide layer that might have formed on the bolts. In this case on the steel, you wouldn't necessarily see this if you were plating copper or something like that. The big thing is, if you have a look very carefully, you'll see the surface is gassing, and that's because the acid is attacking the steel surface.
And how long has it got to stay in there for?
Well, probably only 30 seconds or something like that, etc., because they're quite clean. If they were really mucky, horrible, especially if they were really rusty, you'd leave them in there for longer.
Okay.
So we'll just give them just a fraction more. So you can see they're almost going black. Okay, so let's take them out, rinse them off, and we're going to. Now these are ready for the next step in the process, which is plating. And I just want to explain just a little bit more about it.
Okay, so next step is the actual zinc plating solution. So tell us a bit about what's going on there.
Okay, this is a very simple process. You put zinc salts in here, so zinc chloride in this case, plus it's mixed with some ammonium chloride. We have zinc anodes, there are 4 of them. Okay, and the plating process will be to pass a current. You make the anodes anodic, so positive, and you strip metal from those and deposit it onto the work, which is going to be negative. Okay, or cathodic. Okay, so we're ready almost to begin the process. A couple of little things on this. The process itself is very much dependent on the current you pass. The warmer the solution, the more conductive it becomes, the more current you can pass. If you pass current too quickly, you'll get a horrible grainy deposit. So we're going to start very slowly and build it up slowly.
Yeah, and we've got our current control here, so we've got a voltage supply with a variable current supply.
Variable current. So I'm going to take it out of the actual acid bath, the acid pickle.
So we did this again because we took it out and waited for a minute or two, and then the rust started to form almost immediately. So
it forms very quickly. Yeah. So we'll give it a shake to make sure we don't drag out too much solution. Over here, into there, and we're ready to go. Now the big thing is we're going to put it into the plating bath with the current turned right down to the bare minimum, if anything. Okay, so we're going to connect we're going to dip it in the bath. You'll see nothing's happening. It's not changing any colour because we haven't connected the bath. So as soon as I put this on, okay, and we dip it into the bath, now it will start to plate.
So we've also got here a fish tank aquarium pump, which works as an agitator. It basically means we don't have to stand here for the next 20 minutes moving it around. Yeah. And we can just let it do its thing. So how long do we have to leave that in there for?
Well, it depends on the current, but we want to build up a reasonable thickness. So I would suggest to start with, we'll have a look after 5 minutes and see what happens.
Okay.
So you can see the process itself. It's going grey. That has changed considerably. Okay, it won't look bright and shiny because the bolts themselves aren't bright and shiny. We have a very small amount of current passing through at the moment. It's saying 0.026 amps, which is very, very little indeed. So we're going to just try and turn this up a little bit. So we'll take it up to...
Add some voltage first.
Yeah, we'll set it on 1 volt. I'll turn the current down a little bit. So now you can see we've got 1 and a bit volts, but we've got a couple of amps. So now we can bit difficult to see with all the foam. Might be an idea to remove that, Sean.
Okay, let's just pause there and remove that. Okay, so we had a little play there with a voltage. So we've turned it right down to about 0.5 volt, and we're running at about 0.3 of an amp, and that's been in there for maybe a minute, perhaps not even that. So do you want to just pull that out and let's have a look and see what it looks like? So we're going to give it a quick spray and clean off just so you can see what it looks like.
Again, just make sure that there's minimum transfer out. We'll put it over the bucket, our rinse tank, give it a spray.
So they're looking really nice and almost a real sort of silvery finish.
Yeah, okay, it's only part of the process. They look coarse and granular because that's exactly the finish on the bolt.
Yeah, the bolt quality is very low. It's from a Citroen.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, okay. And you can also see in the threads, look, you can see some black. Yeah. And that's where there's still some dirt and muck in there. So perhaps when we do future ones, we'll have to give them a wire brush in the threads.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to put that back in.
Yep.
As long as we're quick between taking them out, rinse them off and put them back in, you can't afford to let any oxidation layers build up on them.
So we'll leave that in there for another 10 minutes or so?
Well, I reckon if we give that about another 10 minutes and we'll see what they look like. Okay,
well, we'll come back in 10 minutes. Okay, so it's been about 10-15 minutes. We've finally found a voltage setting that we think works, which is basically just over 1 amp, just under a volt. And you can see, it's really difficult to show, but you can just see them starting to sort of fizz and gas. That looks really good, we're happy with those. So if you give me the light, you can pull that out.
Okay, let me just get the bottle for rinsing. Okay, so we've now what we're going to do, we're going to take them out, we're going to disconnect the current because we don't need that any further. Okay, so we'll take them out and you can see the change in the bolts. They look very good actually, just the threads. The threads are a bit difficult.
It's worth noting that these are just test bolts, so we don't need them for anything.
So we're going to rinse those off, which is absolutely key. I think I've said. So there we go.
Okay, and the next stage then is a nitric acid dip.
Okay, so this is 20%. Sorry, it's 20 degrees. I beg your pardon. And it's a very dilute nitric acid dip. This is just to prepare the surface. So we need about 30 seconds in here. We should see, in theory, a little bit of gassing. We may or may not do. It's very weak nitric acid, so I'm probably not going to see a great deal. Again, it's just to make sure the surface is nice and clean. There's not a lot going on in there. Probably be a good idea to time these. But for our trial purposes, this is we haven't timed it particularly well, but
we will do.
We will do.
When we do it for something we care about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, let's just pause it there, and we'll come to the next stage. Okay, so that's ready to come out now. Then, so it needs another rinse. So important to rinse between every stage. And then we're going into the passivate. So, chosen to go for a yellow passivate, and you'll see why afterwards. I think it looks like a nice finish. So straight in here. So again, this is about 20 to 25 degrees.
And about 40 seconds.
Yep.
We'll just keep moving this.
So yeah, slight
I'll just take them out quickly. Look. Okay. This material is chromic acid or sodium dichromate. Particularly nasty stuff, used a lot in tanning industry and also electroplating, chrome plating. So we count to 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to rinse this as quickly over the... Okay, that'll do, just to get the worst of it off, into the bucket. And there we have...
There we go. They look really yellow on camera, but I can assure you they're not. They're a lovely gold. Wow, they do look so yellow, can you see?
Yeah, they do, yeah, they do.
They don't look there. So yeah,
so
really
that's now finished. The process is complete, with the exception of, and the key part of this, is that if you leave these horribly wet, of course they will start to rust, especially where we've got the rubbish in the threads still. So the key part now and the final part of the process is to dry them. Variety of ways, hot hot glue gun, not glue gun, what's that?
A hot air gun.
A hot air gun
Hairdryer
or hairdryer, something like that. But perhaps the best way is some boiling water.
So we've got some boiling water.
And then a good shake off, and then put them somewhere nice and dry, and perhaps even put some oil on them. Okay, because that will help to prevent any corrosion setting in. And that is the process done.
Happy days.
Two
I'm really
complete
pleased with
bolts,
this.
and they look quite good, don't they?
Okay, right, we'll leave it there then, and I'll show you what they look like when they're all finished and dried. Thanks very much.
Right, there you go. So, zinc plating for you. I want to say thanks to my dad for coming over and lending his expertise. We flew through that pretty quick, and that genuinely was our first time through using this kit. And obviously, there's a load of sort of unknowns. Even on my dad's side, who's been doing it for sort of 40, 50 years maybe. The scale of this kit, doing it in a little 5 litre bucket. He used to do parts for tier 1 suppliers. So anyway, a couple of bits. So we've got some bolts done. I'm not going to touch them yet. I want to sort of harden over the next couple of days. Quite pleased with those, and a couple of little brackets as well. So there you go. They are now fully protected. A couple of things to note. We did go back and have a look at some of the starting point. So it's really important that things like your bolts are very clean to begin with. The cleaner they are to begin with, the easier they will be. So you can see the shaft here is very nice, but the actual surface of the bolt is really pitted. So you're always going to struggle to get a really good surface on something like that because the starting point's quite poor. So nice, good, clean starting point. We've played around with the voltages, and we're happy with where we are with those as well. So I'm going to have another go at some bits tonight on my own, and obviously leave them overnight to harden and see where we are. Right, so you joined me a couple of nights later. Really went back and had a look at the process, and can't emphasise it enough. The cleanliness is massive. We also changed the process just a little bit. We were struggling with the yellow passivate actually sticking at the end. So what we were finding is that once you handle the bolt, even after a day, you start to see some of it come off. And it's the actual zinc coating that's the protected bit. The yellow passivate at the end just gives it the nice finish. So it's not strictly required, but obviously we do want them to look okay. So anyway, I think we got on top of that by going to the clear passivate first and then into the yellow. That seems to have improved things. And also because the nitric acid dip before the passivate is very diluted, we were sort of only in there for maybe 20-30 seconds. We're actually sort of popping things in there now for about 2 minutes, and that seems to help. So a couple of nice parts. So you see we've got a really good finish on these now, really happy with them. And that's a good quality finish on the actual bolt itself, so it's easier to get a good finish. So yeah, pleased with those. And then things like the nuts as well. So bear in mind, some of these things won't even be seen. These are the rear axle nuts that go under the rear bench. You won't even see those, but at least they're done and nice. So I've done all of the brake parts. Let me show you a brake caliper. So I'll just add a quick look just to sort of offer it up so you can. So I know this won't actually go here. It actually goes on the rear beam, but you can see with the nice gold finish, I think, just sets it off. Looks quite good. So yeah, I've just put them together briefly. They're all loose, ready for when the rear beam comes back. So yeah, anyway, that's zinc plating. No more to show on that. I think I've sort of done it to death. Hopefully it was interesting for you. I found it really interesting. It certainly killed this whole week in the garage every evening. But I've really enjoyed the process, and it's going to give me the flexibility to carry on to use the hardware that I've already got. I haven't got to buy new stuff, unless it's obviously really bad. And obviously I can just do it as and when I please. So I'm going to have a good tidy up now and put it all away because I've done everything I need to do. And we'll come back to it another time. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.